is Dion Blumenrader with Big Hoss One Sauce, and you're listening to the best show on all things barbecue with my man, Greg Rempe.
Start the game! Let's go!
We'll do it live. Okay. Well, do it live! I'll write it and we'll do it live!
So to get that perfect barbecue, you use wood. Are you sure it's safe? Whatever. We put the lighter fluid on, strike the match, and... Oh! Should we call the fire department? That might be a good idea.
Good evening and welcome to the Really Big Barbecue Central Show. This is the show that talks about all things that are important to the world of barbecue and grilling. This show originating from the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame city, Bomb City, USA, Cleveland, Ohio, the barbecue capital of the North Coast. I'm your program host, Greg Rempe. Happy to have you aboard here on your Tuesday evening's live fire fun and frivolity show. If you would like to get in contact with the show this evening, or you would like to follow the show during off-show hours, here's how you do all that.
You can get in touch with the show by sending an email to Greg at bbqcentralshow.com. Follow us on all the social media channels at BBQ Central Show. And be sure to subscribe to the show podcast feed on your favorite podcast platform.
Anything else you want to find out about the show can be found at the main website, thebbqcentralshow.com. And here's what's happening in case you get the newsletter coming up in about 12 minutes from now. A first-timer to the show, however, a long-time sponsor, specifically cigar sponsor of the show, the VP of marketing for Micallef Cigars, Amanda Micallef, makes her first appearance here on the show. We had her father, Al Micallef, a founder of Micallef Cigars, on the show about 9 months ago or so, and we got a history on him. You remember, Al, very industrious at a highly early age. I believe he was into, was it sock hops or nightclubs or something like that, where he was making $5,000 or $6,000 a week. Was it a week? He was making a lot of money early. So it was great to talk with Al, plus great storyteller. Tonight, daughter of Al and VP of marketing for Micallef Cigars, Amanda Micallef. She'll take the balance of the first hour, so 14 and 35 past. We'll get a history on her because she has not always been tied up in the cigar side of things, has done other business ventures on her own, other areas outside of Texas. Very accomplished, very professional. So looking forward to getting to know Amanda. Of course, we will eventually transition into cigars. We will then eventually transition into perhaps the series of cigars that has turned the whole cigar industry on its proverbial ear, which is the Color Series or the Color Line, depending on however you call it. So all things to be asked and answered by Amanda Micallef here in just a minute. Then we will move to the second hour. It is the fourth Tuesday of a month where we will find a refreshed embedded correspondence joining the show as they usually do. However, tonight we will be sans Doug Scheiding in Santa Barbara or Santa Monica, some San Luis Obispo. So no Dougie. Also, sans Mr. Positivity, Rusty Monson. However, filling in for Doug Scheiding, barbecue celebrity number one, and filling in for Rusty, barbecue and cooking celebrity number two, teasing it So you got to tune in the second hour. You got to catch it on podcast to hear who's filling in for Doug and Rusty, but they let me know well in advance for me to book 2 place takers here this evening. But a long new list of 100% assurity questions, as you've come to know and love here on the show. So looking forward to the second hour as I usually do. That's how the show's setting up here tonight. An Amanda Micallef first hour and a embedded correspondence second hour. Don't forget you can follow me socially, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Snapchat, LinkedIn, all with the handle at BBQ Central Show, where we say good evening to those of you watching this show tonight through one of our video streaming platforms. You can go to facebook.com/BBQ Central Show, or you can go watch the show on YouTube, which is youtube.com/@BBQ Central Show. And we have a new YouTube poll question of the week that we're going to be asking everybody, including all guests. And the question is this tonight: have you ever heard of the Taste Made Network? And currently 67% of you are saying no. You have not heard of the Taste Made Network. I'm right along with the 67% up until Jess Pryles mentioned it last week. I had never heard of it. She said it was bigger than outdoor cooking. Or was it the cooking? Outdoor channel? Maybe that's what she said. It's bigger than the outdoor channel. And I've heard of the outdoor channel. So how big can it be, that being Taste Made? But she knows way more than me. She's got 2 seasons of TV under belt. I currently have 0. Or the next season of TV I have under my belt will be the first season. Results of the poll question from last week. Would you pay $100,000 or more for an outdoor kitchen setup that included everything? 83% of you saying nope. You are not doing the outdoor kitchen setup for over $100,000. So let's start here this evening, and this is something that popped up on my radar, was messaged by somebody. In this instance, rule number 1 of the show applies fully and solely, which is what? No names, please. So I was emailed by somebody you're probably familiar with and said, hey, read the thread below. Let me know how you would answer this. And just to paraphrase it a little bit, this person has been reached out to by No Names Please PR firm and says, hey, we saw that you've done a story on XYZ cooker. This is something that hasn't even been introduced into the marketplace yet. As you may know, it's really hard to keep things under wraps, or this really affects how we're looking to bring things to market, blah, blah, blah. Is there any way you might take this post down on your No Names Please website? And I immediately shot back to this person. I said, look, there's only 2 words that are coming to my mind right now in response to this PR hack. And those words are fuck you. Look, it's your business. In case you didn't realize this, big grilling and cooking manufacturer companies, as you're doing your due diligence, as you're filing for your patents and your copyrights and all this stuff, this is public information. So if you are somebody like No Names Please, who is really adept at knowing that side of the business because maybe he or she spent a lot of time in that kind of the business, knows how to look for patents, new filings, drawings, all this stuff. This wasn't a leak. Somebody isn't narking out on somebody. This isn't embargoed information. And everybody knows how much I love the word embargoed when it comes to not telling other people's secrets. Those emails should say, hey, would you please keep our secret? Not this information is embargoed until Thursday at 8 o'clock. But who cares about that? If you're filing for stuff, if somebody is smart enough and knows the proper legal channels to obtain information and then posts about it, it's called breaking news. Anybody ever heard of that?
The Barbecue Central Show exclusive news update.
Right. You get a sounder like that. Now, that's an exclusive news update. But breaking news. He or she finds this particular drawing or this particular copyright filing or patent filing and then can make speculation from there. Sometimes way off. Sometimes 100% dead on. But to ask, the balls for this person to ask he or she of No Names Please website to take down the post. I mean, you got to be kidding me. Moreover, I said, hey, you say absolutely I will take that down to the tune of $550,000. That's right. You want me to break my livelihood? You're going to pay for that. Somebody's going to pay for that. What have we learned in the live fire industry? A lot of you people are cheap. You'll do it for nothing. You'll do it just for product. You'll do it for a skid of charcoal. We got to up the ante here, gang. Demand to be paid what we're worth. So excuse me, PR people. You don't tell somebody else to take their work down. Leave them alone. Figure out how to keep your secrets better. Tell your trusted partners to do a better job at hiding it. All right, well, Amanda Micallef is in the green room. We'll get to her in just 1 second. And before we do that, we'll talk to you about Pits and Spits. Because we know two things. If you want something that's going to last forever, it's got to have the names Pits and Spits attached to it. If you want something that's made out of awesome stainless steel, you probably should have the two names Pits and Spits attached to it. And if you want a kick-ass 4-burner gas grill that can also turn into a stainless steel griddle, then you have to have the name Pits and Spits attached to it. Because it is constructed of 304 marine-grade stainless. It's got a fully welded design. The griddle comes with 4 burners to accurately manage your heat zones and get blistering hot. With 80,000 BTUs made with the Pits and Spits signature quality, the griddle designed to last for generations. That means longer than you and your kids. People are fighting this for generations. Now, for those of you building this ultimate outdoor kitchen that we've talked about for the last couple weeks, you have to check out that built-in pellet grill that Pits and Spits has designed for the discerning grill master. This grill, the centerpiece of any serious outdoor kitchen, from low and slow smoking to high heat searing. This grill can handle it all: brisket, ribs, pizzas, veggies, you name it, this grill can cook it. With the Pits and Spits legendary craftsmanship, you can be confident it's built to last, with stainless steel construction and a design that's as versatile as it is reliable. So, if you're ready to take your cooking game to the next level, head on over to the website, pitsandspits.com/BBQ Central. And that's the double T on the Pits and the Spits, by the way. pitsandspits.com/BBQ Central. And then use promo code BBQ Central for a free spice pack with orders over $500. And I can tell you that griddle/grill and that pellet cooker, well over $500. So get one or the other or both. Free spice pack coming to you. How about that? Cigar talk. Why not? Stick around. We'll be right back.
You're listening to the Barbecue Central Show. Broadcasting live from the Barbecue Central Show studios in Cleveland, Ohio. You're listening to the Barbecue Central Show. Once again, here's your host, Greg Rempe.
Hey, welcome back. This portion of the show being brought to you by Fireboard, makers of Fireboard 2, Fireboard Pro, Fireboard Spark, Fireboard Beacon, and the all-new wireless Fireboard Pulse. Did you know that when you use the Fireboard app and your Fireboard products are connected to your local area network, you have access to devices anywhere in the world through the app? Find out more by visiting fireboard.com or call 816-945-2232. Great folks over at Fireboard. Hey, the first hour of this evening, we are breaking the normal barbecue and grilling related format and going into another passion project of mine, which is cigars, but not with our resident cigar expert, Mr. Jonathan from the Cigar Authority. Tonight, we are talking with the Vice President of Marketing with one of my favorite cigar brands ever, called Micallef. A handful of months ago, we sat down with the owner, Al Micallef, which was an instant classic interview. And tonight, we talk with his daughter, which promises to be an equally great conversation. So we race to the hotline and welcome first-timer to the show, Amanda Micallef. Hey, Amanda.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
I am absolutely privileged to have you. Look forward to our conversation here this evening. But before we get into all of that, we have a YouTube poll question and a YouTube poll question of the week, and we're asking everybody this. Have you ever heard of the Taste Made Network? Hello. Amanda? She was there, and then she's gone.
Sorry.
Hello?
Sorry, I was trying to get the dog to be quiet. Yes, I actually have heard of the Taste
Yes?
Made Network.
Is
They were blowing up on Snapchat back in the early days when I was still in California. And so I know them from that world. I know they've gone beyond that, but I couldn't tell you what they're doing beyond that.
Since you know, are they bigger than Outdoor Channel?
It depends on how you're counting. I don't know,
Yeah.
but I could believe if you were combining certain social medias and video views and things like that, very likely. If you're just looking at straight, streaming TV, I would have no idea. But they were growing this is almost 10 years ago now, but I mean, their numbers were astronomical.
So, as I mentioned in the open, Al joins the show about 9 months ago. Incredible interview. And the one thing that I came away with was his incredible work ethic and desire to be successful. So if you look back, being a kid, coming up in that kind of a household, like how early do you feel his intensity and work ethic as a kid?
Oh, that's such a good question. I think, I don't remember a time when I didn't, right? You only know what you know. So I can't compare being raised by another father, but there was definitely a sense in our house of anything is possible, but because anything was possible, that you sort of had a moral obligation to then pursue something you were passionate about, and if you were going to do something, to do it 100%. So I, even from a very, very young age, I can't really think of a time where he felt sort of laid back or like you could phone something in. If you were going to do it, you were going to do it all the way.
How many siblings are in the house aside from you?
So I have a older brother and a younger sister.
What's it like growing up with siblings?
I mostly good. We fought a lot, like siblings do, but we all get along really, really well now. I think it's good. I think it provides some cover, right? All eyes weren't all on you. I have a new niece. She's only 1 year old, and she's the only niece. And I feel like if that remains true, every single member of the family is looking at her all the time, right? The nice thing about having siblings, and we were pretty close in age. I mean, my brother's only 17 months older than me. My sister's 3 years younger than me. So we were pretty packed together. It definitely kept any one of us from ever feeling like we were in the hot seat for too long, which is, I think, also a good thing. It probably gave us a lot of freedom.
You're a pretty good student through high school?
No, I was a terrible student. I went back to school later in life and was a very good student then, but I was a terrible student when I was young.
So are you a bad student? So I was a bad student in high school, but I was a disinterested student. I wanted to play sports. I wanted to be social, and the fact that I had to deal with any type of class was a major inconvenience inside the hours of 9 and 3 when school was happening. Or similar to you, or were you just a bad student?
I think there was a level of not really understanding how a lot of what was being taught was going to apply. I really wanted to get their life. I was excited to get started and to do things. I wasn't involved in sports so much as I was involved in theater, but not as an onstage person, behind the scenes, doing a lot of producing and productions and things like that. And I excelled in that arena. So it wasn't like I couldn't see areas where I had capabilities, but just basic learning, studying, especially test taking, really was not something I excelled at all. And I went to a really small, very competitive school. And I think that, in a way, was a disservice too, because pretty quickly I was so far behind my classmates. To be honest, I kind of thought I was stupid until I got out of high school. And then I started interacting with the rest of the world, and I'm like, oh, I got this. But it was such a small, hyper competitive college prep school that if you weren't going to an Ivy League, you sort of were kind of like, oh, you're not smart. And I wasn't smart in that way, but I have later found things that I'm very good at. But just, taking tests and memorizing things was not one of them.
So do you go to college right out of high school, or do you take time in between?
So I did not go right out of school. I had a kind of very roundabout way of eventually going to school. When I was a senior in high school, I time ever decided that they would do an intern that was afternoons in April, and a movie was shooting on our ranch in February. But again, sent them to let me take the entire month of February off in place of afternoons in April. And I went and worked on this movie for a month and kind of fell in love with the film business. And the people from that movie offered me another job in the fall. So I applied to college. I got into, I was supposed to go to American University in Washington, D.C., but I ended up deferring my acceptance so long that they eventually had to give up my spot and started working on movies right.
So do you go to California?
Yes. So
Wow.
I work on movies in Texas for several years,
Yeah.
and then had an opportunity to go to California and moved out to LA and spent about over 20 years there. I only recently moved back to Texas about 5 years ago.
Wow. So all film related, or like you get out there for film and then at some point you're into a whole different career?
So film related for probably about the first 13 to 15 years.
Wow.
And then started doing some early days of social media video content, particularly story content on, I mentioned Snapchat earlier. When Snapchat made a pivot from sort of being the disappearing videos to Snapchat stories, a friend of mine and I had just started doing some still photo shoots using Instagram as a format, and then we started playing around with Snapchat to shoot the behind the scenes. And we were very early on it, and a big part of kind of helping brands figure out how to use it, and which is how I knew Tastemade. And so this is probably, call it 2015, but we were able to kind of crack the code, if you will, on how brands might use this. And so we ended up, he was an agent, I was producing movies, but we ended up leaving our kind of post and starting a social media marketing agency that really focused around short form video content and experiential events.
Wow.
To sort of enhance brand presence.
From the movie side of things, any movies you worked on that we would know, like hits?
No. I mean, I did a lot of like little tiny independent movies and things. Part of where I got out of the film business is I was forever getting things set up at studios and things like that. But they just, you would get the flashing green light. They would never actually go into production. And then I was able to make a lot of smaller movies. So as, from an independent producing standpoint, I was always busy, but nothing that really broke through, nothing that I would expect anybody to be like, oh, I know that. Unless you like a lot of dark thrillers, late at night.
How does the cigar business find you?
Well, it didn't find me, so it found my dad. And, he was a longtime cigar smoker and eventually kind of decided to get into the cigar business. I think he was completely nuts. And he was in the business a few years before I finally decided to make a move home. But really, it was, late 2019, so about 5 years ago, my business in California was kind of at a crossroads, and we were getting ready to shift into some tech things that I was certainly thought were the right decision for the company, but not something I was personally passionate about. At the same time, looking at my parents were getting older. My dad, for anybody who watched that interview knows, has had a lot of luck and been very successful, and kind of realizing that I was, likely along with my siblings going to inherit a lot of businesses. And if I wanted to have time to come home and actually really get to work with my dad in those businesses and really learn from him, it seemed like a good time. So I moved home 5 years ago to start working with him. And so the cigar business was one of them. And it wasn't the one I was interested in. Initially, it was sort of like I was going to work on some of the other things, but we have the cigar company. And so if marketing for our family businesses, then cigars is one of them. And, at that time I had never smoked a cigar. So I jumped in and started learning and smoking to kind of figure it out. I was not somebody who loved the first cigar that I smoked. It's months. I tried some stuff about, and it took me a while before I kind of found the right combination and the right frame of mind. And to be honest, there's ceremony around cigars, but when you're new to it, it can be very intimidating. And so it took me a while to get comfortable and actually enjoy a cigar.
I agree. I had never really smoked like real cigars ever. My dad had a phase. I don't know if it was back in the late 80s, early 90s, maybe it was late 80s. So I think there was a cigar boom going on in the mid 80s, something like that. But I don't even remember the brands. There were humidors down in the basement, smoked in the house, back then when men were men.
Yeah.
And but I don't remember it being something that went on for years and years, but I never got into it because I was, young at the time. So maybe 4 years ago or 5 years ago, coming up next month, I was at a golf outing and they had a cigar roller there. So the guy that I was teamed up with is a cigar smoker, younger guy, mid-30s. And he's like, let's grab a couple of these. And so we smoked one. And it was like a real cigar. You had to clip the cap off and the whole deal. So I took a golf tee and I like rammed it through the cap just to get some kind of a draw through it and burn the shit out of it when I was lighting it. And the whole time smoking it, I was like, how does anybody find this enjoyable? But I took 2 or 3 home and subsequently smoked those over the next handful of days. And to a T, terrible. And I'm like, well, I don't understand this. So I YouTubed, how do you smoke a cigar? And then quickly I'm realizing, okay, well, you're not cutting it right. I was burning the shit out of it when I was lighting it, so I was probably ruining the cigar right up front. And then all of a sudden you learn about the nuance and the ceremony and all this other stuff like you were talking about. And now the experience becomes way more enjoyable, way different. Flavors are appearing, not just like shit coming out of the cigar because I've ruined it. And now it's, like I said in the beginning, it's kind of this whole new passion of mine, and be able to meet people like yourself and some other manufacturers just through relationship has been a great help and learning curve for me, and then being able to pass it along. What I found unique is that a large portion of my audience, let's call them the live fire community, are also very big into cigars, probably because of a flavor standpoint. Have you noticed something similar?
Absolutely. I think, partly because a lot of people don't like to smoke indoors, or a lot of people's partners don't like them smoking indoors. It tends to lend itself to people who have outdoor. So a lot of people who barbecue and smoke, a lot of people who play golf, fishing tends to be a big thing, some hunting. So there's no question that it aligns well with a lot of people who like to spend time outside. And then I think you're absolutely right. When you get into the food community, there's an even bigger, interest in, and especially people who start to kind of think about how you can bring out different flavors by pairing it with things, or how you choose to cook it, how you add heat. I mean, that's one of the most interesting things for me about cigars, is really understanding how the cigar can taste and change based on how fast or slow you smoke, or the size of the cigar and how that affects the tobacco and things like that. So yes, I've definitely noticed that a lot of people who are live fire cookers are into cigars, but they go together really well.
Can you give us the brief overview of how Micallef Cigars came to be?
Absolutely. So, Dad, serial entrepreneur, can't help himself. He keeps starting businesses. Was a long-time cigar smoker, but sort of been the occasional cigar smoker, or somebody who might smoke on a fishing trip or a hunting trip. But late in life, he became more of a daily smoker. He would go down to the cigar lounge and he would enjoy a cigar with friends. And it was really became his community and kind of his way to unwind. I think for him too, it was somewhere that wasn't a business. We have a restaurant in Fort Worth, and he used to spend a lot of time at the restaurant, but you would have to be, there was a nice lounge area to hang out by our bar, but he kind of had to be on when he was there, whereas you could be at least at first, he could be a little more anonymous in the cigar lounge. And so he started, and the lounge was near our restaurant. He started spending more time there and became interested in cigars and tried a lot of different things. But while he was there, he met two brothers who came in and were rolling cigars in the lounge. And they spent several days there rolling cigars. And he after a few days, he asked them if they would blend something for them. And he went to start to tell them kind of what he likes. And they're like, we've been watching you smoke for 3 days. We know what you like to smoke. And they went off and created a blend for him, which is our Reserva today. And he smoked some and he really liked them. And so he asked for them to make him some. But Dad has definitely got that, everything is bigger in Texas kind of attitude about everything. And so when he said he wanted some cigars, he didn't want a few cigars. He wanted 1,000 boxes of cigars.
Wow.
Which is more than the average person, especially, and these are two brothers who are driving around the country, rolling. So it was kind of on the outside of their normal order.
Yeah.
But they say yes. And he starts talking to them. And as he's waiting for a cigar and he's getting into it and he's getting to know them more and he's learning more about it, he's also starting to realize that these gentlemen know a ton about tobacco and they know a ton about blending. They know nothing about operations and supply chain.
Oh.
And so he starts to kind of put together that he's found these people with a lot of talent, but maybe not a lot of great business acumen and logistics planning. Something, our core business or our first business was manufacturing, silicone manufacturing. So we have tons of experience manufacturing and logistics and supply chain all over the world. And this idea kind of blossomed from there of, I've got experience in all of this area where these two gentlemen seem to be lacking. They know a lot about tobacco and know lots of people in the industry and seem to have great connections to get, tobacco, and they can blend it very well and they know about fermenting. Could something come together? And so that's kind of was the beginning. And so my dad decided to start Micallef Cigars, and then he basically, made a contract or partnership with these gentlemen to become the master blenders. And so they oversee all of the production at our factory in Esteli, Nicaragua. They had always they were a Cuban family, immigrated to Mexico and eventually the United States, but were splitting their time between Nicaragua and Miami. And so Nicaragua was sort of an obvious choice for us over, say, Honduras or the Dominican Republic when we were thinking about a factory.
You coming on directly as VP of marketing, or did you have other positions before that?
So the first thing, when I joined the company, the only thing I've ever done for the company is marketing. So I did not have other positions at Micallef. Micallef was about a 3-year-old company when I joined. And so I think they probably early 2017, late 2016 they started. I joined at the very end of 2019.
Did you think it was imperative for you to become some type of cigar smoker in order to do your job properly, or could you get away with being a marketer and not a smoker? I
think there are marketers who could get away with being a marketer, not a smoker. I was not one of them. I felt like I didn't know if I needed to be somebody who smoked every day. And to be honest, I still don't regularly smoke every day. But for me to be able to understand and know and have ideas, I felt like it was very important that I use and enjoy understand the product. I grew to enjoy it, but at least I had to have firsthand experience. But I'm that way about a lot of things. Some people can be very conceptual. I'm not. I really have to kind of roll my sleeves up and get into something to really be able to understand it. And then once I understand it, I can build on that.
Mena, can I put you on hold just for 1 second? I'll do
Sure,
a piece of business.
of course.
We'll come back and pick up the cigar talk. We're talking with Amanda Micallef from Micallef Cigars, by the way. The website is micallefcigars.com. That's MICALLEF cigars.com. So check it out here. Well, we're talking this evening. What do we love about ceramic cookers? A few things. We love that they're fuel efficient. We love that you can achieve low and slow temperatures for traditional barbecue meats. We love that you can get rip-roaring hot for the high-temperature grilling of steaks and other thin cuts. But we know by now what's missing in the everyday lineup of ceramic cookers, the real ability to do true two-zone cooking. Two-zone cooking, very important to both professional and backyard cooks alike. It's the best way to manage a fire and cook with confidence. However, getting a two-zone fire in a round ceramic cooker isn't very realistic. Why? Because it's round. Enter Primo grills in the game-changing oval design. The shape gives you the ability to execute that two-zone setup that you desire, also giving you the other ceramic grill benefits as well. And really, when you break it down, there's more than 60 different ways to configure the Primo cooker, so you're only limited by your culinary imagination if you are somebody that likes cookers but likes accessories even more. Primo doesn't disappoint here either. For example, Primo Grill pizza accessory, the Primo Grill rotisserie, the Primo Grill rotisserie, I'm going to call it a bucket, but that's not what it's called, where you can put, I don't know, a dozen, 20, 24 chicken wings. It's called the rotisserie basket. That's what it's called. Or you can put vegetables in it. They have one that's partitioned off into 3 different sections. And there's more accessories that are coming out each and every month. So you're all covered there as well. As we always say, by the end of it, you've bought more accessories in total than that grill cost in the beginning. But I love the Primo. Using it all the time now. And I think the thing that is most important to understand, where the ceramic cookers come with a lot of trepidation about, I don't know how to set the vents at the top and the bottom, or it's too hard to really understand or dial in. Completely false. A few cooks, and you know exactly where you need to be on both the exhaust adjustments and on the air intake at the bottom. And if you can't figure it out, you can get an automatic temperature control device to help you there, but you're just not going to need them. And I love using the heat deflectors. That really helps too. So, only sold through dealers. So go to primogrill.com, find a dealer near you, and then visit that dealer in person, touch and feel all the different size ovals, and then pick the one that best fits your budget. Primogrill.com. Follow them on Facebook or Instagram at primogrill.com. We're back with more Amanda Micallef right after this. Stick around. Be right back.
You're listening to the Barbecue Central Show. Howard Stern, Jim Rome, Dan Patrick, and Greg Rempe. The Mountain Rushmore of talk show entertainment. Now, let's get back to the Barbecue Central Show.
And we welcome you back. Appreciate Amanda Micallef joining us for the second segment here in the first hour. So, how easy is it for you to make your way into, what is widely a male-dominated industry?
I get that question a lot, and there's no question it is male-dominated. It is changing rapidly, and so I think it's interesting because and in many ways, just by pure coincidence, when I started, I think women. There was the beginning of this movement around more and more women smoking, and now when I look around 5 years later, oftentimes I'm at an event and 30 or 40% of the women at the event are women, which is night and day from where it was 5 years ago. So because there was this kernel of an idea happening, I think my timing was very good and that people were more open than ever to a woman, and in many ways really wanted to talk to women who were interested in cigars and pick their brain about how you could tap into the female market. So, I would it's hard being a woman. Interestingly enough, I wonder what everybody in our sort of leadership team is not from cigars, which was hugely uncommon. Most cigar companies are oftentimes multi-generational people who came from the Dominican Republic, Nicaragua, Cuba, of course. And so while the blenders are from Cuba, my dad has no background. Dan Thompson, our company president, comes from a tech background. He was a Microsoft guy. I came out of entertainment and marketing, and so I think though maybe some of it was the fact that I was a female, what I actually felt more of was just all of us people being kind of like, you don't get it, you're from the outside, you don't understand the cigar business. Way more than anybody cared that I was a woman. Everything we were trying to do felt very disruptive to the cigar business, especially 5 years ago. And I think that was a much bigger shocker than the fact that I was female.
So turning the question on the ear from a manufacturing side of things, I don't think it's a reach for me to say that women play probably the most vital role in this whole cigar production.
They're a big part of it, and there's several roles that are super integral. That said, I was still surprised when I got into the business to find out that more than 50% of the people at our factory were female. I guess that's how little I knew about the cigar business when I got into it. But they're a huge part of the cigar business, and they're actually a huge part of the cigar history. And even though people consider this such a male-dominated world, in many of the biggest names in cigars, there is a woman who is a very big part of that business. They just don't tend to be the face of the cigar companies. And for so long, traditionally, men were people out there smoking. Women, from a business standpoint, have been part of everything from manufacturing all the way up through, distribution and marketing and things for many years.
So it's not a relationship that has spanned, 50 or 60 years yet, but there is a good connection between Micallef family, the Gomez Sanchez family. How are the two able to remain so connected? Because I've seen few partnerships, especially in the cigar world, work out with any real long-term success.
I think we have a really clear division of duties. We really don't try to tell them how to make and blend cigars. We'll tell them what we're looking for in the sense of, for instance, when we came out with Micallef Black, we really recognized that the industry was going into stronger and stronger cigars. We had a lot of medium-bodied cigars, so we were very insistent that we need a strong cigar. But how they got there was not, we weren't going to get into their business on how do they get that strong cigar. We're bringing out a much lighter cigar next year. Same thing. We're not telling them how to blend the light cigar. We're just saying we have a hole in our portfolio. We need even lighter than we currently have. Go do that. And then the way the partnership is structured, they don't really have, nor do they really want us, say in how we're choosing to package, market, price, sell things. So I think everybody sort of stays in their own lane. And it probably helps that both parties have not a lot of knowledge about what the other one does very well. So that truthfully, I wouldn't know how to tell somebody to blend a cigar even if I wanted to. And, while they're incredibly talented, part of, I think, how we found them driving around the country rolling cigars is they don't have a lot of acumen in distribution and marketing and scaling something, to be a nationwide brand. And so I think it's a happy marriage, partly because both groups need each other.
So a few years ago, the color line was introduced, and it literally changes the game for the entire market. What conversations are taking place prior to launching what ended up being Micallef Black, especially since at that point it did seem that higher-priced cigars were on trend at that point?
Yeah. So a couple things. We were watching what was going, the pandemic happened in 2020, and we saw a lot of people smoking a lot of cigars, but a lot of money going into people's checking accounts that we didn't necessarily think was going to continue. And so we had a hunch, or, if you will, it was shared by plenty of people on television that a recession could be around the corner. At some point, all this money would dry up and people would suddenly be looking to spend less. So, that's so part of the price point thinking was people are getting really used to having and smoking more today. They're at home. They're might want to continue this once they go back to work, but they may not have the same amount of cash that they currently have, both because the government may not be backing it and they're going to be out being able to spend money on things that they can't right now because the whole world is shut down. In addition to that, early on, prior to both Dan and I starting, but when we first started in the business, our cigars were considered expensive for what they were. We were we had a lot of $14, $16 cigars. No one knew who we were. Part of that was we had no scale in our factory, so the economics weren't there for us. So we recognized that we held those prices for a long time. So even what was considered expensive at the time in sort of 2016, the market has come up to those cigars. So now we're kind of right in the middle on those original cigars we had. And we're able to stand there and hold them while everybody else kept raising, partly because as we made more cigars, we get some economies of scale and we could make things less expensive. But we had a line of less expensive cigars that we weren't making, another company was making for us. And they kept getting more and more expensive. And we recognized that we wanted to continue to have a value price line, but the only way we were going to be able to do that and hold the prices was to do them at our own factory. So we started early, this is probably, call it the very beginning, say June of 2020, we started thinking about how do we start getting enough tobacco, how do we start getting enough people, enough rollers that we can scale this factory to make enough cigars that we can economically make things for the right price. We start looking at how do we package them in a way that makes sense so that we can really, bring these cigars out, at the price point that we wanted. And then, as funny as it sounds, one of the biggest conversations we were having is we had all these cigars that when people smoked them, they liked them, but they could never remember the names to go back and get them again. Micallef is hard to remember, but then the name of the cigars were like Herencia, Experienza, Migdalia, Leyenda. And so people were like, could never remember to go back and ask for them again. So all these conversations are happening at the same time, but what we really recognize is we want a value price cigar that feels like a premium experience. We talk a lot about how even though we don't want you to have to pay a lot of money for the cigar, you shouldn't feel like you're getting an inexpensive cigar. You should still get the same feeling of opening the box and the bands and the stuff. They should feel rich while not being costly. And then they need to have names that are easy to remember, and they need to be packaged in a way that we can provide what feels like premium packaging, but still in an economical way. So all these things are happening. One of the things that surprises a lot of people is a lot of the cost of cigar is not the actual tobacco. It's all the things that go with it. It's the band, it's the vista, it's the box, it's the second band, it's the ribbons. I mean, so we stripped all of that away. And so the color series is incredibly simple in that it's a painted box, which, believe it or not, is not as expensive as boxes with printed things. It's got gold accents, which does sort of elevate it, make it feel like a premium experience, but not tons of gold. So from a cost standpoint, not outrageously expensive. It's 2 colors, so printing is inexpensive, and nothing else. It's a single band cigar. There's no ribbon. There's nothing in the box. They're $25 to a box, whereas a lot of times cigars are 10, 15, or 20. But this way we get to spread the cost of the box across more cigars, which lets us keep the price down. I don't even know if you noticed, they're also, the boxes are very vertical compared to a lot of cigar boxes. They're not wide, less expensive to make, but also allowed us, because we knew when we started we were going to bring out a whole series of colors. So we could get 5 colors in the same spot that somebody else could get 3 colors in if you were a traditional box. So it was all made to be very shelf-friendly and very price-friendly. And then the names, of course, stem from, we just were like, what's the easiest, we got so exhausted with people saying, I can't remember what we smoked. And we had people tell us, well, a lot of times with people have bands that have, a really clear color on. So even if they can't remember the name, they'll be like, well, I smoked the green one or I smoked the red one. And I'm like, well, Dan and I were like, well, why don't we just name them that then? If that's really what people are doing, if they're remembering. And my dad did that. He loves, there's an Avo turquoise cigar, and he always says, he never remembers the name. He was always like, I like the turquoise one. I don't even remember the name because we always says the turquoise one. And so that's sort of where it came from, was like, wait, if this is how we're all doing it, let's just do it. So we released black first. Funny story, white was supposed to be, black is the strongest in the series. We thought we would release white second, the lightest. We grossly misjudged how hard it would be to make a great light cigar. So white will finally come out next year. So it took us 2.5 years longer than we thought to get a blend we liked.
By the way, Micallef Black, that had to be the one to come out first. A banger in all senses of the word. And I don't really understand, like, my palate or my body doesn't really understand strength. I appear to like, from what I've learned, I appear to like stronger cigars. So I think Cigar Authority has the Micallef Black at like a 6 or an 8 on the strength-o-meter. So
I think it's like a 6 or a 7. It's pretty low, which always surprised. But I guess I forget that there's some things that are just the totally smack you in the face, really, really strong. Black is about as strong as I'll go.
Yeah.
So, I would like, and we actually did a black firecracker with Cigar Authority for, that was just released, at Father's Day. And, I have to know it's a great cigar, but I have to baby it, because it's even stronger than regular black. But yes. So, and black did have to be the first one. We needed to come out with something that kind of surprised everybody. It was outside of our normal, strength. We knew we needed to do something first that would get people's attention and have them think about the cigar in a very different way, and really more than importantly, Micallef in a very different way. We really kind of needed to rewrite the story of Micallef a little if we were gonna really be able to plow new ground.
So subsequent releases are red, blue, and then most recently purple, which I just got a box a couple days ago, and I've had 2 purples underneath my belt. So for me, purple seems to be the least strongest cigar.
So it depends on who you ask. So blue is actually lighter than purple as far as nicotine goes. Blue has the least amount of nicotine, followed by purple. Purple is very creamy because it has a broadleaf. So depending on what you're looking for, so I could see where if you're somebody who likes a lot of strength in the sense of flavor, purple might feel the least strong. If you're talking strength from a nicotine standpoint, then purple would be, but it's not that different than blue. So my guess is purple isn't like red and black are going to be in your wheelhouse way more than purple as far as what you're going to kind of go back to again and again. And
I do think those end up being my 2 favorite wrappers as well. I love a Maduro wrapper, and what I've come to find is I absolutely love a Habano wrapper. I think Herencia has a Habano wrapper, and I love that cigar as well. So it's always fun kind of figuring out what you end up liking or gravitating towards. But the good news is, if you're looking for the other unique thing, I think that Micallef maybe doesn't get talked about enough is how you have basically said, hey, discount retailers online, forget about it. We're only going to be going to brick and mortar. This is how we want to support those guys. And you're not interested in making the quick buck or, selling to those entities online. So that's a great business.
It's been good, and it has 5 years in. I can say it's working out well for us. Certainly, when we first did it, everybody thought we were nuts.
Yeah.
But it's working. It is. It took some time. I think a lot of people didn't believe it. I think other companies had, and I don't know by example. I've just been told people like, yeah, we hear that, but it never sticks. We've stuck with it long enough now that I think people believe that we mean it, and we do. And so now a lot of it really is great. A lot of brick and mortars have really gotten behind us because of that, which has been fantastic.
So we have the white coming at some point this year, or is that next year?
No, white is next year. Is next year. The next cigar is coming out this fall. It's green.
Any tasting notes or scoops?
So I can't tell you a lot about it, but what I can tell you is it's a Matafina wrapper. And when we used to have a Matafina cigar, Brazilian Matafina cigar, that was one of those cigars that we retired when we were making cigars with somebody else, and we brought everything in-house. And we had not a large, but a really hardcore community in our ambassador community that loved Matafina. So much so that we promised them we would eventually come out with a Matafina. So this is like the least kept or worst kept secret in the cigar business, because we've been telling people for years we're coming out with a Matafina. I will tell you what's been interesting is I'm not a big Matafina person. I'll be honest. Like I was like, okay, we partly picked to release it in the fall because it's the softer cigar time to release a cigar. It doesn't tend to, but we got that cigar in. I think it's going to give red a run for its money as far as popularity. It is so good. And it's not, though if you're a Matafina person, you'll like it and you'll recognize the Matafina, but you don't have to be a Matafina person to like it. It's a great medium full-bodied cigar. I'm actually very excited to send it to you. I'll get it up to you in September because I really want to hear what you think. I think you're going to like it a lot. It's got a ton of flavor. There's a little bit of a sweetness to it, but the sweetness is a little bit got more depth and earth to it than like a Sumatra sweetness. It's a great cigar. So anyway, I'll be excited for you to try that and for other people to try it. But I think it's going to be a hit.
Are there a lot of Matafina wrappers on the market today?
No. Probably the most well-known one is CAO has a cigar called the Brasilia or something like that. That's a very well-known Matafina. Matafina had a moment probably. Jonathan would be able to tell you, but I'm going to say more than 5 years ago, right?
Yeah.
So I think we came out with a Matafina at the tail end, we came out with it probably in 2017, 2018, and we were probably at the tail end of Matafina having a moment. And even then it wasn't like a big moment. We'll see how this goes because we've been really careful not to, and here I am talking about it being a Matafina, but we've been careful as I start prepping the release notes and the press release and stuff to not overdo the fact that that's what it is, because I'm concerned that it might turn people off. And I think it's a better cigar than just assuming, you have to be a Matafina person, but we'll see. We've actually started sampling it at some events on purpose, which we never do early, but because we want to start getting it into people's hands early so they can start talking about it so that people don't just immediately dismiss it. So we're our release plans are kind of a slow grassroots burn as opposed to just a big get it out there for that very reason.
Amanda Micallef joining us here on the show. The website, MicallefCigars.com. Visit there so you can find a retailer near you. Amanda, really appreciate you hanging out for the past 2 segments and giving us your story. Continued success, and can't wait to talk to you again soon.
Thanks so much. It's been great. Y'all have a good night.
That's Amanda Micallef right there. Green Matafina. Smoking Joe's Pit Barbecue in the instant chat going, I've never heard of that rapper. Joe, that makes 2 of us. I don't think I've ever heard of it. I listen to a lot of Cigar Authority as well, as you know. Big fan of Mr. J. I've never heard them say Matafina ever. So very interested in getting my hands on some of those in September. By the way, if you are looking for samples of Matafina, you're going to have to wait a little bit, but I'll send them out when I get them. Also, I have a Migdalia Extra Corona, which almost looks like, what do you call those thin cigars? I don't remember what it's called. No, I'm not going to remember. Also, in Robusto, I have purple, so as you're listening to this, if you would like a sample of the Migdalia and the purple, let me know and I'll send them out your way. No, it's not Cigarillo, Joe. There's a name that I can't think of. I'll ask Mr. J when he's on next quarter. All right, let's go ahead and wrap this first hour. Stick around. We'll be right back.
Continuing to produce incredibly mediocre content in an exceptionally professional way. You're listening and watching the Barbecue Central Show. Once again, here's your host, Greg Rempe.
All right, welcome back, and we thank Amanda Micallef for joining us for the past 2 segments. Deep dive into her background on movies for 15 to 20 years, then getting into tech, and then finally coming home to cigars. By the way, Smokin' Joe, I took a look. It's Lancero. That's what I was thinking of, Lancero. Matafina, region of Bahia, Brazil, known for its dark, smooth texture, rich, balanced flavor profile, often featuring notes of earthiness, sweetness, and subtle spice. That sounds like it's right up my alley. Anyway, MicallefCigars.com, MICALLEF, MicallefCigars.com. Find a dealer near you. You can also find them online through a brick-and-mortar retailers. So like 2 Guys, the number 2 Guys, cigars.com. And if you want samples of the Migdalia, the purple, or the Matafina when that shows up in September, just shoot me an email, greg@thebbqcentralshow.com, and I will send you a sample of both. And then once the Montefina's roll in September, I'll send you out a sample of that as well. You are listening and watching the Barbecue Central show right here on the Barbecue Central Network. Refresh your libations, and we'll be back for the second hour. Stick around. We'll be right back.